everybody, and welcome to your Enzyme Kinetics Laboratory. Kat, you should remember from our previous videos, and me, you know as Barb, and I apologise that Jenny is sick today, so she couldn't make an appearance. Oh, hang on a minute. Hey Jen, I thought that you were sick.
Hi guys.
So the three of us are going You're looking very well. The three of us are going to run you through our laboratory today. Okay, hi guys. What I'm going to do is give you a little bit of an explanation about what we're doing in this lab, so it's going to make sense to you when we do it. So this is like Barb's 101 biochem, okay? It's really basic because we've had this conversation because I'm basic. All right, so I'm going to take things right back and make them simple. So let's pretend that we have an enzyme, okay? So here's our enzyme, nicely shaped. And what we're going to do in our lab is we're going to see which one of these alcohol substrates our enzyme prefers. So this is our alcohol dehydrogenase, okay? Our ADH. And we're going to trial different alcohols. So we're going to have, this is our ethanol, this is our methanol, we're going to have propanol, and we're going to have isopropanol. Okay, so we're going to try each of these and we're going to say which one of these is preferred. So as you can see by this, like you can just assume that this square is going to fit nicely inside this pocket. And that's exactly what happens with an enzyme. It has a substrate that it prefers, and in this case it's going to be ethanol. It fits beautifully into that active site so that it can make whatever bonds it needs to make in order to make whatever change it needs to make to metabolize. It comes in, it gets converted, and it gets converted into acetaldehyde and whatever else it goes into. Okay, so the important thing is that we know that that's what fits. So then the next alcohol that we're going to test is going to be propanol. So if you look at the shape of propanol, that's going to fit into our active site as well, but not quite as well as what the ethanol is. So it's still going to make the correct contacts that it's supposed to make, but not all the correct contacts. Okay, so ADH, being an alcohol dehydrogenase, it's not an ethanol dehydrogenase, is going to be able to metabolize other alcohols, but it's going to prefer one to the other, and that's what we're testing. So you can see that the propanol fits into that active site, but not as well as the ethanol. So then if we have a look at our isopropanol, so when you look at the structure of isopropanol, you'll see that it's branched. It's not even going to fit in here to start with, okay? Oops, that's a really bad, looks like a leaf. You could give it an eye and a beak, look at that. Sorry, okay, I digress. Anyway, it's supposed to be propanol, isopropanol. So you can see with all those bits that jut out, it's never going to fit into that active site to start with. So we would be expecting that it's not going to work on that. So now when we look at methanol, methanol is smaller than ethanol, but it's only by 1 carbon. So methanol definitely fits in here, but it's going to sort of bounce around, and it's going to make contact sometimes and not make contact at other times. So it's still going to be metabolized, but not to the extent that ethanol is. So I want to give you a brief example of why enzymes, why their specificity is so important. So we know at schoolies, kids take off and they go to Bali and they go and celebrate for their schoolies week, and every year we hear in the news that these schoolies have gone over there and they've ordered drinks and they haven't taken it from bottles that have been sealed and they've been sold methanol, okay? It happens all around the world. It's cheap, it's nasty, it's easy to get, but it also kills you. The important thing is that it's not actually the methanol itself that kills you. So we normally drink our ethanol. We go out in the night in the town, we drink vodka, whatever your flavour of the month is, and that's ethanol, and that's what our ADH is used to metabolising. So it breaks it down into acetaldehyde, and then it gets broken down and it gets released from our body, and we get a hangover, and everything's all good within a couple of days. Methanol, unfortunately, when you drink it, doesn't get broken down into acetaldehyde. Methanol gets broken down into formaldehyde, which might sound familiar to you guys because that's what they use to embalm dead bodies. So, and if we break it down one further, it goes into formic acid. So it's not the methanol drinking that kills us, it's when our methanol is taken up by ADH and it's metabolized into formaldehyde. That's what we don't want to happen. So they have a cure for methanol poisoning. I shouldn't smile, okay, it's not fun. What they can do is, if you've ingested methanol, so long as you don't metabolize that methanol, you'll be okay. So what they can do is they can hook you up to a drip and they can feed you straight ethanol. How good's that? For free, on tap. But the point is, this is how amazing your body is. Your ADH will preferentially take that ethanol that's in your system, and while it's taking that ethanol in and it's turning it over and metabolizing it, and it's not taking the methanol because it has its preferred substrate, that allows our body to excrete that methanol out. And so once that methanol is out of our system, we're out of the danger zone. Mind you, it doesn't take much for it to be toxic. So that only works in cases where they get onto it really quickly and if there's only a small amount of methanol in your system. But what a wonderful example to show just how amazing this selectivity of enzymes can be. The fact that you can give it a choice and it will take that ethanol over the top of the methanol. So it's really important, and there is not much difference. When you have a look again at that shape of ethanol and the shape of methanol and draw it out on a piece of paper so you can see them, there's not much difference, but our body knows the difference, and it can make that much of a difference in its selectivity. Alright, so now we're going to have a look at the reaction that we're going to use in our laboratory. So here we're looking at ethanol, okay, which we know is one of our first alcohols that we're going to look at, CH3CH2OH. And when we metabolize that and we use our enzyme ADH, it turns into acetaldehyde. Aldehyde. Okay, so this is what it does when it converts. And that's all great, so we know how that metabolizes and we can do that in our lab, but how are we going to know when this reaction occurs? Because we're not going to see it, there's no way that we can measure it, except by drinking it, hanging around for an hour, but again, that's not suggested. So what we're going to do in science, we sometimes couple reactions together. So what we do is we take a reaction that we know that we can measure and we couple it to the reaction that we want to test. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to couple this reaction to one using NAD+. So we're going to take NAD, let me do a second reaction up here. So we're going to take NAD+, and it's going to convert to NADH. Okay, so we're going to put this in the same reaction and it's going to be converted. The reason that it does this as we go across is because this hydrogen, extra hydrogen, has to come from somewhere. So we're going across here, we're going to convert into this. Our NAD plus through this reaction is going to pick up a hydrogen, it's going to convert from NAD plus to NADH. So still, what does that mean for us? So what that means is that for every one molecule of ethanol that becomes one molecule of acetaldehyde, one NAD plus is going to become one NADH. So what does that mean for us? So we've got a spectrophotometer and we've got it set at 340 nanometers. The beautiful thing about this reaction is that at 340 nanometers, NAD plus doesn't have a UV spec in this range, okay? It can't be seen. When it becomes NADH, we can then pick that up and we can see it. So what's going to happen is our spectrophotometer is going to start 0 here, and as it comes across and 1 goes across, it'll come across and it'll add up to 1. The next one will come across and this will be 2. So every time an NAD plus turns to an NADH, our absorbance level is going to increase at 340 nanometers. So we can see our alcohol, our ethanol, turn to acetaldehyde by an increase in absorbance. So you see when you have your tables, you'll see an increase with the absorbance over time. What you're seeing is the NAD plus becoming NADH. So this is the way that we're going to be able to watch our reaction happen. so how are we going to monitor this and what difference does this make? Our NAD plus and our NADH absorb light, our UV light, at different frequencies. So at 340 nanometers, which is what we're going to have our spectrophotometers set to, we are only going to see our NADH, because our NAD plus doesn't show at 340 nanometers, okay? So we're going to start off with nothing here, NAD plus, and as soon as we see our absorbance start to rise on our spectrophotometers, we'll know that it's our NADH that's increasing, okay? And that's a beautiful thing, because it's a one-for-one reaction. So for every one alcohol that turns to acetaldehyde, every NAD plus turns to NADH, and we can monitor it with our spectrophotometer over time. So that's how our experiment is going to work. All right, so now we're going to look at these 4 different alcohols in our lab. So ethanol, methanol, propanol, and isopropanol. We've just seen how they can fit or not fit into that active site of our ADH. And that's great, but how do we monitor this? How can we say that one is more preferred to the other, all right? So we're going to look at something called Vmax and Km. So at the moment, they don't really mean much. So I'm going to try to explain to you how they come into being, and at the end of the lab and the prac, you're going to be able to work these 2 values out for yourself. But I want to give you an analogy as to what they mean, okay? So let's pretend we have 10 enzymes, but we're going to make them 10 car washes, okay? So just like those drive-through car washes at Car Lovers, we're going to have 10 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This one's had the extension. 8, 9. Maybe that's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woo. Okay, 10 car washes. Okay, and these car washes are going to have a build-up of cars that are coming in to be washed. All right? Okay. So what Vmax is? Vmax is a number that tells us how quickly and how efficiently something can run. So the higher the number of a Vmax, the more efficient and the more it likes something, okay? So you can imagine the faster something goes, the quicker something runs and performs, the better it is. All right, so if we have a look at these cars, first of all, Vmax, when you have a listen to your lectures from Jenny, you'll hear is a hypothetical number. Vmax doesn't really exist. So what I mean by that is it's a number that we can get really close to, but we can never really reach that. So to explain that, I'm going to use these car washes. So here we have these cars, and they're going to start pulling in, and they're going to come into these car washes to start being washed. As they start filling up and running further and further and further, when all 10 car washes all have a car in them, that's called being saturated. So when all our enzymes have substrates, and there's no more that can possibly fit in, that's at saturation, okay? So saturation just means that they're full. So our 10 car washes here have each got a car in them, and they're all washing as fast as they can, okay? So we know that we can't go any faster. So that number, that rate, is Vmax. So now why is it hypothetical? Because unless we want to wash these same 10 cars all day long, at some stage, one of these cars is going to have to come out and another car is going to have to pull in. At that time, this Vmax has dropped, okay? So we have to have some time for changeover. So if you can imagine this running constantly now, that Vmax is never really reached. It's always going to be just under like this as the turnover occurs, okay? So Vmax is as fast as it can run within limits. Okay, so that's our Vmax. Our Vmax is a number that we're going to give to it. It's usually in mgs per minute of a certain enzyme, okay? But we'll come to that later. So the higher the Vmax, the better the substrate and for this enzyme. Okay, so now that brings me to Km. So Km comes from the Michaelis-Menten and the Lineweaver-Burke plot, the calculations which we'll go over and I'll explain to you. But unlike Vmax, the lower the Km given to something, the better the substrate. So The way to explain this is that Km has to do with our concentration. So now let's go back to our line of cars that's coming in. If I had 500 cars lined up here waiting to come into these car washes, then that's all great, because as soon as these become empty, I've got 499 more cars sitting there that are willing to come in. So this is going to run at Vmax forever and ever and ever. But it's really not very efficient, because I still have 500 cars lined up, and while they're lined up there, they're not doing anything else productive. So they're not doing any good. They could be off, I don't know, down the pub, drinking. It's an alcohol drug, you say. They could be doing anything. It's not productive at all. But on the other hand, if I only had 2 cars sitting in this line waiting to come in, then this one's going to become vacant, this will come in, this will become vacant, this will come in, and some of these will start becoming empty and they'll have no cars waiting to come in them to be washed. So what's going to happen is that Vmax is going to drop. It's not going to keep that saturated, okay? So, in order to keep this at Vmax, we need to find the minimum number of cars that we can have in that line in order to keep this running full tilt, okay? So if we only have 2 cars, that's not enough, our Vmax will decline. If we have 500 cars, that's too inefficient. So, in the words of our experiments, the lowest concentration of cars we have sitting here, the more efficient it is. Okay, so the lower the Km, the better the substrate. The higher the Vmax, the faster it runs. The lower the Km, the less concentration we need to keep our enzymes running full tilt. Okay, so let's begin. You're going to walk into the laboratory, and here is our setup for our lab. So you can see our spec machine. We've been through that before. We're going to check that it's on 340 nanometers, and I'll show you a close-up of that shortly. I have a timer, which is really important for this lecture. We have our cuvettes, and these are 1 ml cuvettes. We have NAD plus solution. So this is light sensitive. That's why it's in this brown colour, so that it can't get light to it, otherwise it's deactivated. We have the rack here that has all our alcohol concentrations in it. So we have 5 concentrations of ethanol, 4 concentrations of propanol, and then we have 1 of methanol and 1 of isopropanol. We have our enzyme, which is our alcohol dehydrogenase, otherwise called ADH. It's on ice, so that way we can make sure it works when we need it to. And then we have the usual stuff that goes on it. So we've got our pipettes and our pipette tips, which you should be familiar with since you did your pipette exam. And that's it. So we'll move on now and we'll start the lab. So I've uploaded for you this enzyme kinetics laboratory document, okay? For you to be doing this lab, I want you to print out a copy of this and keep it with you so you can go through it as I do the lab. So you can see here, it just gives you a brief introduction, it tells you what's here, the concentrations, it tells you what's in the assay mix, and it tells you about the enzyme. So as we go, I'm going to point you to the pages that you need to turn to so that you can fill in this document as we go. Alright, so I'm going to start with the method for section 1, the effect of ethanol on the reaction rate for the ADH enzyme. So A tells me to turn on the spectrophotometer and check that the wavelength is set to 340 nanometers, and we've already done that. The second part says number 5 plastic cuvettes, 1 ml, high up on the ribbed side. So Kat's already done that. So here's the first one that we've got, and you can see it's on the ribbed side, not the smooth side, and it's nice and high up. So C says blank the spectrophotometer to 0 using an empty cuvette. So we can use several things for blanks, but for this case we're going to use just air, just an empty cuvette. So I open up the spec. I'm going to take the first one that we've got. It's got nothing in it. Make sure the light source is going left to right so I know which side my clear side is. Place it into the spectrophotometer, close the lid and press the yellow 0.00. Our spec machine is now blank, it gives us our baseline and we're ready to start. Okay, so now we're going to start with our experiment. We're going to get Kat, now follow along with me, okay, so you know what we're doing. D says add 0.9 of a mil of NAD plus to the cuvette labelled 1. So 900 microlitres, the same as 0.9 mil, beautiful. And remember I said that the NAD, ignore me Kat, keep going. The NAD plus is light sensitive, okay, so we're going to do these one at a time. So if we were to put all 5 out at the same time, thank you. If we were to put all 5 out at the same time, they would probably become desensitised by the time we came to use it. Alright, so now we've got 0.9 of a mil in that first one of the NAD+. We're going to add 0.1 of a mil or 100 microlitres of the appropriate alcohol substrate solution. So this is going to be, if we look at our table, it says tube 1, 1 molar ethanol. So we're going to add 100 microlitres of 1 molar ethanol to the NAD+ plus in tube 1. Okay, Kat's going to now make sure that that's mixed, okay? Really important that it's mixed before we put it in. Going to use a squishy pipette. Okay, so now we're going to pop it into the spec machine. Make sure the light's running in the right direction. We only touch it on the vivid side. Close the lid. And now we're going to take the absorbance value as our first number. So what I want you to do first of all is I want you to turn to the very last page that I've given you of this printout, and it says Barb's experimental results, all right? And you will see on this table where it says time in seconds 0 at 340 nanometers, 1 molar ethanol. So in that box there, you're going to take a pen and you're going to write 0.036, okay? I'll do it as well. So we can, actually I'll get Kat to record it as we go. So 0.036. So this is our time 0. I want you to understand what time 0 means. We have our NAD plus in there, which is what we're going to monitor our reaction with, and we have our 1 molar ethanol, which is our substrate, okay? But nothing is going to happen until we put in the enzyme, the ADH, because the alcohol and the NAD by themselves do nothing, all right? So that's going to give us our nice starting point. So now the important thing is we're going to add the enzyme, the ADH, and at exactly the same time that Kat adds it, I'm going to press the start button on the timer. So it doesn't matter, our time 0 is going to remain time 0 until such time as we add the enzyme. Okay, so Kat close. Kat is going to put
I answered anything.
10 microlitres of our ADH, and she's going to put it into our number 1 test tube, which we're going to leave in the spec machine, okay? And she's going to say, go.
Go, Bob.
Alrighty. So now we've got 30 seconds in which to make sure that this cuvette is mixed. Because in here now we want to make sure that our enzyme and our alcohol and our NAD is all mixed up together before we take our first reading. So we're now going to take the readings at every 30 seconds. So at every 30 seconds, I want you guys to fill in this table, all right? When it gets to the 30 seconds, I'll read out the number and I want you to fill it in. So 30.231. Kat, can you, I was going to get you to hold it up. Here, fill it in on mine, and then you can hold it up. Oh, we've got 30 seconds. I did say, guys, if I was going to do this lab, you were going to have to do it with me. So if I'm going to be bored, you're going to be bored.
So am I.
We're all bored. Even the cameraman's bored.
Hey.
58, 59.405.
There we go for the kids watching at home.
So that's how we're going to fill this table in. So this table, I actually want you to submit this table handwritten when we've finished this. I'm going to give you a different set of numbers. So this table that we're filling in is just going to be the numbers that I get. I'm going to email you your numbers to go in. 0.533. Okay, so your numbers, when I email them to you, are going to be in that booklet that Kat has. but it's going to be the same as that, but it's going to be called table something else. Table, I'm making this up, 2.1? 0.629. So now we're up to the 150-second mark, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so we're only going to time this for 3 minutes, okay? I'm not going to dance yet, because like if I dance already, I'm not going to have anything up my sleeve for a little bit later on. You'll have to hold out for my dance. That's lovely, Kat. 28, 29, 0.701. So it's pretty obvious that as the time increases, the absorbance is increasing, all right? And that's going to correspond to our chemical reaction that I described to you guys earlier on the whiteboard. So we've only got one more to do. 53, 54, 59, 0.758. Okay, so that's the first 180 seconds that we've done for the 1 molar ethanol. So your table that you're filling in should look like the one that Kat has filled in here, okay? I want you to see that there's that increase as we go from time 0 through to the 3 minutes, that absorbance is increasing. So our NAD plus and the NADH is being converted at the same time that our ethanol is being converted to acetaldehyde. Okay, so now we can see that reaction going ahead. So now we're going to turn to the next concentration of the ethanol, and we're going to test 0.5 molar concentration, all right? And we're going to do exactly the same thing as we did the first time. So Kat, if you want to put 900 microlitres of NAD plus into tube 2, and I'll throw this into our non-sharps waste.
Correct.
Oh, thanks. Always nice to be correct. I'm always correct. You guys know that. I think we've discussed this previously. All right, so in goes our 900 microlitres of NAD plus, just like we did the first time. Now we're going to add 100 microlitres of 0.5 molar ethanol. So half the concentration of the first one. So while we're doing this, have a think about it. Like, what do you think the numbers are going to do if it's half the concentration? All right.
I know.
Not you. Okay, so we're going to put that into the speed machine and we're going to check it at time 0 after we mix it. Okay, so on our live timing, our absorbance at time 0 is 0.036. So if you can write that in for time 0 for your 0.5 molar, as Kat's done. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add the enzyme. So then we're going to start timing it for that 3 minutes again, okay? So 10 microlitres of our active enzyme ADH. Kat's going to say go.
Go, Bob!
Go, Bob, go. Go, Bob,
Go! Oh my gosh, I only got 30 seconds to do this.
You got 20 to go. Sweet. Okay, so now we're going to set the timer again. We're going to go. We're already up to 17 seconds. And we're going to record it at the 30-second mark. So hopefully we're going to see a trend start to occur as we record these times. So the first one is 0.197 at 30 seconds. You're happy that you can write? Good for you. I did pre-warn you guys that this was going to be boring, okay? 54, 55, but it does get exciting, but just not all at once.
Oh.
0.308, sorry. Bum steer.
No drinking ethanol in the lab, Bob.
We don't drink our mistakes, lesson number 1. Although the labs will be more fun. No, health and safety, no. No drinking health samples. Nope. Okay. See, I told you I had to stay appropriate when it's on film. 29, 30, 0.401.
Oops.
What was that? Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Cameraman.
We're going to make Mr. Cameraman give a cameo appearance before we're out.
Put his hand
53, 54, 0.472. Okay, so already you can see the same trend. You can see that as the time is increasing, that absorbance is increasing. But you will also notice that as we go from left to right, as we go from a higher concentration to a lower concentration, it's increasing at a lesser rate, okay? And we'll see that as it goes further on. Okay, the next one is 0.527. And we have one more to go. Dead silence.
Oh,
We'll take this opportunity for a
I know, I was about to
sponsor
say.
from Jenny.
Hi, Jen.
Hi.
How you feeling?
Yeah, no, not too bad, thanks. Is everything going okay?
Everything's awesome. Everyone's behaving.
Excellent. All right, I'll be back again soon. All right. Last reading, 0.569. Beautiful. Okay, so I will stop that. So that's the end of our 1 molar and our 0.5 molar. So we do need to keep going ahead, and we need to now test the 0.25 molar, 0.125 molar, and 0.0625 molar. So when you have a look at those molar concentrations, you're going to notice that they're just halving as they go down, okay? So it's just a serial dilution as we go down. I'm not going to keep filming this all the way through at this speed because, trust me, you guys are going to get really bored. So as we go, we're going to still run this, but we're going to fast forward it, okay? So we'll chop this and we'll go, and I'll see you back here in a minute.